Ted hadn't made up his mind yet about whether or not he was interested in a 72 campaign. In fact, he was still sure that there was no way America would allow him to forget Chappaquiddick long enough for him to run a successful campaign. However, he wanted to keep his options open, just as he wished to keep it open for 76, too. In other words, Sergeant Shriver was still in the way. I think Ted and some others might have liked it if Shriver just got out of politics altogether, to be candid, said Pierre Salinger. His presence being an issue every 4 years had begun to cause serious problems in the family. In fact, Eunice and Ethel weren't even on speaking terms for much of 1971, because Eunice was convinced that Ethel still harbored a resentment against her husband and was working behind the scenes to help orchestrate a campaign against him within the family. Another issue was that Sarge had a lot of unanswered questions about Chappaquiddick, said an anonymous source who knew him very well. He felt that Ted got away with something there, and maybe he should have had just a little more humility going forward. He said to me, the fact that he didn't go to the very first house with lights on and say, "Jesus Christ, a girl is drowning. Come and help me," is very suspicious to me. It looks like he was just trying to save his skin. I just think he could have been a more gracious person, considering how lucky he was to get out of that mess. In the end, Sarge felt the whole Chappaquiddick matter was badly handled anyway. He thought the arrival of all the Kennedy acolytes, of which he wasn't one, to the compound was a terrible idea that over-dramatized the matter, as he put it. If it were him, he said, not that he ever would have found himself in such a jam to begin with, he would have sat down in the privacy of his study, come to terms with what had happened, prayed about how to proceed, and then he would have written a heartfelt speech himself. He would have then delivered it to the American public in as sincere a manner as possible. The fact that he had to have all those people writing that speech for him, I think that was insane, he later said. I just don't understand that. Making matters worse, as far as Sarge was concerned, was that a few weeks after the Chappaquiddick accident, Ted flew to Paris to visit with his sister Eunice at the ambassador's residence. Was he the least bit contrite, or humble, or sad, or apologetic, or anything? Sarge asked. No, he drank the whole time, was drunk and disruptive. As it happened, the Shrivers had another visitor at the same time, Herbert Kramer, a publicist and speechwriter with whom they were working on a Special Olympics project. Eunice and Sarge were embarrassed by Ted's behavior in front of Kramer. Here we had a man Ted didn't even know who was a guest in our home, and Ted was treating the place like a big frat pad. I swear I wanted to punch his lights out, Sarge said to his friend. He was definitely not a big fan of Ted Kennedy at that time.